Hey, everybody. Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
All right, Dean, if I asked you to recall maybe your two best retail experiences or your two worst retail experiences, which one do you think would be easier for you to...
Worst, probably?
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
I think most people, if you ask that same question, be like, oh, I can tell you some bad ones quite easily.
Like some self-service that went awry.
Yeah.
Or just totally off the rails.
Or just like a really rude customer service person.
Yes.
Or something.
Yeah, like, hey, wait a minute. I'm the customer, right?
Yeah.
No.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think, again, most of us, when we think about retail experiences, we're more apt to think about the bad ones than the good ones.
I would agree.
I think the good ones are what obviously most retailers want you to remember. So a lot of that, it falls into this idea of understanding customer journeys, giving them a positive experience, why all that's so important, especially now when there are so much competition, so many options for how to shop and where to shop.
For sure.
So we're getting into that conversation today. We're going to be talking to Andy Szanger from CDW.
Yep,
We're going to talk about customer journey, experiential shopping. This idea again of how these journeys have changed over the years, why things are different now, why technology is becoming such an important part of that. We're going to get into the idea of going to a physical store, which I know some of us cringe at. I'm pointing at myself here on this one.
But the research shows that people are back.
They are. It does. Yeah, exactly. And more importantly, that if people are going back, what they expect out of those shopping experiences.
Right. Yeah.
And then we're going to talk a little bit about our VAR partners in particular, how maybe some of this can trickle down to what they work in, especially on the SMB side. So we got some good stuff here to talk about, and how technology can kind of blend into retail to really build these experiences out that we are all essentially craving when we go to a store, if we go to a store.
Yeah. And we got the right guy to talk about it.
Exactly.
There you go.
All that plus our usual value to the VAR. What's TEConnecting with us? It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, as I mentioned, our guest today is Andy Szanger. He is the Director of Strategic Industries for CDW. Andy, thanks so much for joining us today. Happy to have you on the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and maybe why you got to be such an expert on retail. I know when we were talking about ideas for this episode, there was a lot of stuff you sent over and said, hey, I can talk about any of this stuff. And I had to narrow it down a little bit to one topic, but you seem to know quite a bit. So what's your background on retail?
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate you having me on today. So my title at CDW is Director of Strategic Industries, and so what my teams are responsible for are for helping to develop our go-to-market strategies, identifying and developing new industry-specific solutions and services, and providing industry expertise to our clients, our partners, and our internal coworkers. And so I've been with CDW for about 28 years now, so quite some time now. But prior to being at CDW, I was an assistant store manager in charge of operations for a big box retailer, and many responsibilities there, including overall operations, loss prevention, many other categories. And although the industry has changed so much since then, it really gave me a great foundation for understanding the challenges that a retail company faces and how technology can be used to help improve efficiencies and store productivity, improve that customer experience, and reduce risk from their business. And so over my career at CDW, I've led our retail practice and really helped to develop how we approach the retail industry.
We've had a great relationship with Andy through the years as well, being at BlueStar and CDW's relationship. We've leaned on Andy a lot in the retail space and getting a better understanding of what the heck's going on.
And he's got that experience on both sides of it. He understands it from the reseller perspective and from the IT channel perspective, and also from I actually lived in the retail stores. I know what
hands-on
to do this stuff behind the scenes. Yeah, exactly.
Bingo.
So good. That's good stuff. That's a good reason, I think, to have this conversation with you, because I'm sure, like you mentioned, you've seen so much change over the years.
Yeah.
And obviously, we point to all this and we look at, all right, the last, let's say 3 to 4 years in particular, a lot has changed, for obvious reasons. But, a lot of this has been a change that's been on the way and happening for the last, let's say, decade, 15, 20 years even or so.
Yep.
I mean, even since back in my time in retail, early 2000s, like stuff was already starting to change then. And we've only I think we escalated some things and accelerated some things over the last few years, but we were heading this direction regardless.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this idea of the retail customer journey in particular. And I think, we as marketing folks talk a lot about customer journey. It's important to understand, how does your customer get to you?
Who are they? How do they get to you?
What are they thinking? How do they make decisions? And that's important for retailers to understand, obviously, as well. Is like when someone buys something from you, how did they get there? Why did they come to that conclusion?
Why would they come back?
Them? Why would they come back?
Right.
So, again, this is not the same as it was, let's say, even a decade ago. So talk a little bit about that change, what's happened maybe over the last 5 to 10 years, and how much of that journey and what's changed in that journey is tied to what's been happening in technology.
Yeah, well, I think everyone knows obviously what happened over the last couple of years, regarding the pandemic and how that impacted shopping in the retail industry, which was one of the most impacted industries out there. And I think, though, the reality of it is many people during the pandemic that didn't previously shop online very much started doing so because they had to, right? And so in addition to having items shipped to their homes, they also used other fulfillment options such as BOPIS, and whether that was curbside pickup, trunk delivery, locker pickup, or pickup at the register, overwhelmingly, the majority of the people found that experience more convenient. And so now that customers have started to come back to the store, and I think we're seeing trends that less shopping is being done online now than last year, and that trend continues. So it's great that customers are coming back to the store, but they have different expectations now, right? They want that same level of convenience that they had when they were shopping from their home. They don't want to wait on long lines. They expect products to be available, and they expect an overall efficient experience. And yet retailers are struggling at times because of some of the labor shortages. And ultimately, consumers also want to start and stop their journey anywhere they want, right? They don't want to have to worry about whether they start it online, in store, in an app. They want that journey to be unified and be able to start and stop in any place. And so I think that's been the major impact coming out of this, is that the consumer now has less patience for store inefficiencies and lack of service. And retailers have to try to figure out ways to make that a more seamless, journey.
I like to sometimes blame it on other generations, right? like you got this younger generation,
including us.
but in reality, there are societal changes too,
right,
that have changed that, right? You've got whole generations that have grown up with a screen in front of their face, and the me generation, and being able to do whatever they want, whenever they want, kind of a thing.
Right,
so,
right.
But technology has certainly enabled that in the retail space as well. I mean, when you have now curbside and or personalization of the shopping experience, that omni-channel nirvana that I think a lot of retailers are going for, exactly what Andy just said, kind of that blended experience, right? Like if I'm shopping online and I walk in the door, I want them to know who I am, have the same experience, right? I don't want to have this great online experience, go to the store and it's run down, or the customer service is terrible. There's no technology being used in the space, you know what I mean? And you don't want that disconnect. So I'll throw on the table that society really, in the way that we operate today, and our expectations, as he said, really kind of driving the whole tech change behind it. But it's enabling it, right? Yeah. Technology is enabling. The fact that we have the ability to do all these things is also enabling that as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's that simple fact of, we all, again, you said, we all walk around with a screen in our pocket. We all walk around with these little mini computers we're carrying all the time. And our expectation is, all right, if it's an easy, seamless experience for me to do all these things on my phone or on my tablet, or on my laptop, whatever it is, why would I want to go to a place where they clearly are further back than that? That doesn't have that modern technology. And I'll back up some of what Andy mentioned here about the shopping has changed. There's a Forbes article I came across that they pull some statistics from Proper Insights and Analytics that says, it tells us that adults are shopping online less in 2023 at 29.9% than they were in 2021 at 46.5%. So more than 15% difference in just a couple of years of who's shopping online and how much they're doing so. However, the difference now is that they are expecting the digital experience to be merged into their physical one. They want to have the convenience and product availability of an online shopping experience, even if they're shopping in store. Exactly what he was saying.
Right.
They also note too that 31.8% of adults prefer a contactless checkout versus with the cashier. Again, I'll go back.
You're winning.
I'm definitely in that category. Yes, let's see that one keep bumping up, because I'm all for that too. But again, it just speaks to this idea of, the options are there. Maybe people do want to maybe get back out to stores again, but they still want it to be a quick, seamless technologically, enabled experience to get out there. And I think of the fact of like, if you do the separation of like, say 10, 15 years, what you had to do if you wanted to, I'll give you an example here, buy a new car. For the most part, you just had to go to a dealer, check out some cars, do some test drives, deal with the salespeople driving you nuts or whatever, and trying to sell you all kinds of things and figure out what you wanted. And mind you, the last time I bought a car was 6 years ago. I didn't do any of that. I did all my research online. I was doing all the experience stuff online, checking out what I wanted. I was booking test drives, overnight test drives online, where I just literally just go and pick it up. I didn't have to deal with all the salespeople stuff. And when I was just like, all right, this is the car I like, I just showed up and said,
they didn't hold your driver's license hostage like they always do.
They do a copy of it now. Really, they'll take like a copy of that in your insurance, and then basically be like, all right, you can take this home overnight, but we know who you are and where you live.
Yeah.
But I mean, even that, and that again, that was 6 years ago. Now you've got stuff like Carvana and some of these other places where you can do your entire car shopping online and have it delivered to your door or show up somewhere and have a cool little elevator bring it to you. So it's stuff like that where again, we've learned to adapt our own lives around all of this technology. The expectation has to be there that the retailers are matching that too. Wouldn't you agree with that, Andy? You think that's pretty much where we are now?
100%. I think the reality of it is the retailers that'll be successful in the future are those that are going to be able to create that great in-store experience with innovative digital experiences and really merge those two together. At the end of the day, it needs to be seamless and frictionless for the customer.
I mean, just when you walk in, the first 20, 30 feet of a retail establishment compared to 30, 40 years ago, completely changed.
Oh, yeah.
Now that you have kiosks and things of that nature, right, Andy? I mean, just that space alone has probably changed in the 28 years that you haven't been in the industry.
There's no doubt. I mean, and technology is really enabling a lot of that, right? Think about when you walk into, a large format store, and you're trying to find an item and you have no idea where it is. You're starting to see stores integrate into their mobile apps around, looking up an item and telling you exactly where it is, what shelf, what aisle. I don't have to sit there and look up and down the aisles to try to find, the right color, shirt or smock that's kind of walking around and flag them down to ask them where I could find something. Something as simple as that, it just, is making life easier. And think about where that could go in the future, where how can they automate that to actually have a more seamless way even than that.
And I think you guys at CDW are in touch with some of the innovative stuff that is happening, right, as it relates to the store experience, where some of them are even changing just the contextual environment of going to a store and what they offer. Maybe it's a smaller amount that's on the floor, if you will, but they have the ability to fulfill those orders in real time right then and there, right? They're enabling the associates with mobile devices so that, if we don't happen to have it here, I can order it and I can have it to your house, whatever, maybe same day or first thing tomorrow morning kind of a thing, right? So you're seeing, right? You're seeing some trends like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely. The mobile, there's a lot of statistics around the amount of growth that's going to happen with mobile POS and how quickly that's expected to grow over the next few years. I saw one stat that was just staggering, around the growth that's happening there. But it eludes me at the moment, so I apologize. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it was rather staggering with how much investment's happening into the mobile devices, and that ultimately solves for a lot of that customer experience, right? If a customer can look up information on their own phone faster than they can get the answer from the store associate, there's a miss there, and
that's a problem.
Yeah.
And so mobile devices are helping to solve for that. Whether it's for checkout, whether it's for inventory, whether it's for product information, enabling store associates with mobile devices and not making them leave the side of that customer helps with conversion rate. It helps with customer experience and customer satisfaction.
Yep. In fact, I was reading an article where it's all around prioritizing customer engagement and not necessarily the sale, right? I mean, kind of like, I can remember retail where you would walk in and even like the high-end retail, you had a salesperson on you immediately. Like, oh, hey, what's your size? Hey, come on over here and look at this new fall
What are you looking
fashion.
for today? What are you looking at? Hey, did you know this is on
As
sale?
opposed to like, now it's a shift. It's more of a, consultative type sale, but enabled with mobile technology. I mean, I've noticed that change as well in the marketplace. Let's talk a little bit about personalization, because you hear a lot about personalization, right, Andy? Like the need for, when you talk about a customer experience, well, and especially generational, again, I'm going to go to the younger generations, they feel like, well, you should know who I am walking in the door, with loyalty programs and things of that nature. But I guess it speaks to the whole omni-channel and stuff like that. But there's a push towards personalization. Are you seeing that as well, and what people are talking about and just some of the chatter that's happening in retail?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because it's a little bit tricky at times because companies are a little bit worried about PII and liability and regulation around tracking customers' information and how that data is treated. So I think there's a fine line there of, where it feels creepy and where it feels good.
That's a good take. Yep.
And so it's definitely that fine line to walk, but where retailers are getting that balance right. I'd much rather see a targeted ad or a seller, a store associate coming up to me with something relevant to talk about than, some random thing that I will never be interested in. There's nothing worse than getting 1,000 emails about products that have nothing to do with what I do.
Yeah. And you're starting, to kind of drill in on the digital signage and media that's happening in the retail space. I mean, I think studies have shown that people are okay when messaging is relevant to them. Mm-hmm. And certainly there's a desire to try to bring that technology in as well, where it, obviously it can get dynamic as far as day parting and things of that nature, but even dynamic down to the person type of a thing, or what they might be shopping for, right? We're starting to see a lot of use of digital signage in retail space. Have you seen that, Andy?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too because you could start merging together use cases across multiple technology platforms as well. And so if we think about RFID as an example, I think it's obviously RFID is not a new technology by any means. But the use cases are starting to pick up where the ROI that retailers can achieve by looking at it in multiple ways, right? Retailers have been looking at RFID for inventory, management for years. Some use it for security purposes. But when we start to look at it for other things, such as interactive experiences, combining that with digital signage. So how about if you went into the store and you picked up a sneaker in a sporting goods store, and all of a sudden the digital signage all changed to that sport instead of being generic advertising? Or even better for Dean, maybe for you, maybe you walked into a liquor store and you picked up a bottle and a digital signage in the area started telling you about all different recipes and different things that you might be able to do with that spirit that you might happen to have in your hand, which is probably bourbon.
Yeah. Oh, 100% it is. Yeah.
I mean, we are Kentuckians. Come on. So, well, I am at least. You are. You're adjacent. Kentucky adjacent.
Might be how you want an ice cube.
There you go.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up the RFID technology because my daughter is, of age that she's working in retail. And I was talking to her the other day about the store she works at has everything's RFID.
Right.
And so part of her inventory count, she's going around wanding and doing that. Now, she was complaining that it takes her an hour to do that for 3 stores in the mall. And I'm like, do you realize how much time savings that, comparatively?
It's never good enough for the younger generation.
It's a little lost on that. But
what do you mean I can't blink and do this?
Yeah, exactly. But when you get down
to... if you want to have a separate call with your daughter to talk about what we used to have.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
100%. But what she did kind of dive into was the Geiger counter mode on the RFID so that when customers come up and ask her about it, she can punch in the product and then it'll start, until she finds it. Yep. And then boom, it's like, oh yeah, it's right here, type of a thing. And, we've talked about, well, in order to get good talent and the labor shortage that's out there, how do you enable your employees? Well, you got to have that kind of technology. And I was just getting the sense from my daughter that that's a really cool use of RFID.
Right.
I can walk around in Geiger counter and find it, and then that helps me, right?
Well, and again, that's one of those things where I think, as a retailer or as a retail customer, maybe you're thinking, or as someone selling to retail, maybe you're thinking like, all right, that's all about the retailer and just helping them ease their job, maybe helping their employees. But without thinking about the fact that like, hey, again, that all just blends into the whole customer journey and experience. Because to your point, if you're walking in there and asking for an item and they have to go look in the back room, spend 20 minutes back there,
check around here shelves, somewhere,
find where it's been misplaced. They know it says the inventory's in there. I mean, that's frustrating for a customer, but that kind of technology, yes, it's beneficial to the employee and to their own work experience. But man, how awesome does that look to a customer when you can walk in and ask for something and it's been misplaced or still in the back room and they can find it just a couple minutes and put it right in your hand. I mean, that's awesome.
It's cool stuff.
Nothing bad about that.
Well, and let's think about the other side of that too. So you place an order online for pickup in store. You get to the store and they tell you, and it said that it was in stock, and then they tell you that we're sorry, we can't find the item.
Yeah.
Dude, that just happened to me the other day. Frustrating.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, someone picked up a shirt in men's department, dropped it in a rack in the women's department, and they're never finding that, that shirt. And meanwhile, it's there. So, RFID can certainly solve for that.
Yeah. Exactly. That item level RFID going on there. So, well, so let's dive a little more into the experience part of things. We've touched on this a little bit already, but I wanted to get into some statistics here as well. So, Lightspeed had an interesting article about, experiential retail. And they note that brands that focus on engagement and personalization see their revenue increase by 6 to 10%, almost 3 times faster than brands that don't. And a Forrester report found that 66% of consumers think that a company valuing their time is the most important thing that company can do.
Right.
Hard agree on that. I mean, again, it's if you are going to take the time to show up in a retail store, in a brick and mortar store, you want to be making the most of your time. Nobody wants.
Excellent point.
I mean, I know there are some people that like shopping, but for the most part, most people, they go because either if they like shopping, they just are browsing. But if they're going because they want something, they want to be able to get it, get in, get out, and move on from there. So let's talk a little bit about that whole idea of the building the experience where, again, obviously retailers, the ultimate goal is like, hey, we want you to buy stuff, but we'd love it for you to show up in store so that we could potentially sell you more, not just the one thing that you're trying to get that you could buy. Sure, you could buy that one thing online, but if we get you to come to store looking for that one thing, sell you 4 other things, that's even better. But again, that experience seems to be what people are looking for. Like, give me a reason to show up in your store and not just buy this doohickey online from you. So talk to us a little bit about the tech that makes that happen. I think we've touched on it a little bit, but explain more about what is it that gives an experience to someone when they walk into a store versus just, I'm just here to buy something, show me where it's at, and then I'll leave.
Yeah, well, I think it could go in a lot of different directions depending on what the brand is looking to achieve. But I think before, may not directly be answering your question, but I think it's pretty relevant that I think one of the things that are often overlooked is we talk about the customer experience and the customer journey. But I think often we don't talk enough about the store associate experience. And ultimately, that's really where it starts. And removing friction from the store associate experience ultimately will result in a better experience for your customer. Because at the end of the day, if your store associate is experiencing friction, your customer's going to feel it. And so I think it really starts with there. So that's not necessarily talking about the technology that's giving that customer experience. But I think if we don't start there, you're never going to get to it. I mean, think about if you have to go to the customer service counter of a large store, and it doesn't have to be in a big box store. It could be in a small boutique store as well. If your store associate doesn't have access to the information, let's say you go up to a counter and you're looking for Dean needs one of these blue shirts, but he needs it in a little bit bigger size because he's been snacking a little bit too much. And so,
too many Fig Newtons.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
So they just happen to be out of stock on that size, and he wants to know if they have it in 5 miles up the road at the next store, but doesn't want to drive there. And the store associate's sitting there fumbling, trying to look up the information, trying to find out if they have it in stock. And the associate's apologizing to you. I'm so sorry, our systems are a little slow, or I can't find the information. That's a real clunky experience that doesn't leave Dean with a good taste in his mouth. He's going to have to have a few more Fig Newtons to get rid of that taste. But if the store associate has access to the information, she could actually even place an order for you, have it sitting there reserved for you, and you can go over and pick it up. So much better of an experience. But it starts with the store associate having access to the technology.
Well, even beyond the idea of like someone just sitting there and saying they're sorry and apologizing for everything. What about, because I've experienced this often, the employee that's actually openly angry and frustrated.
Yeah.
Like the person who has clearly experienced this problem multiple times.
Yeah,
You're
right.
like, oh, this stupid computer never works right. I can never find anything. I don't know. We probably got it, but this dumb thing isn't telling me. Like, what is that telling your customer? You're telling them like, all right, these people are frustrated all the time. I'm going to be frustrated because of this. They're clearly not enabling them with the tools that they need to create a good experience for me. I mean, you're all you're doing is, to your point, that experience starting with the employee themselves it's just being reflected and trickled right down to the customer themselves too.
Yeah.
I walked into one store once, and I'll leave the name of it out, but it was a large format store, and I walked in because I saw that they had the inventory in the store, so I drove a little further to go get it. And I got there and I spoke to a store associate who was actually an assistant manager. And she said, "Oh yeah, our website's never right with inventory."
Oh, that's so frustrating.
Great. Yeah.
Great to know.
Not the kind of brand champion that you want to have there in your store to encounter that. So,
well, I like the angle. that you're going here, Andy, with the store associate, because I think that is key, right? When you think about experience, people still buy from people, and people still like the experience. And enabling your associates, if you're investing in people that actually are going to be in store, and you've automated certain other processes or parts of the process through frictionless counters and stuff like that, then it should be enabling those associates to do a better job and to be able to coach the experience a little bit more. Like, you walk in and let's say you're trying on a pair of gloves or something and you want to see how it fits with a coffee mug or something like that. Enabling folks to be able to do that, having associates there that can do that. That's the shopper experience that's going to win over, right? Because you're going to walk out of there thinking warm and fuzzy. Oh, this was a nice place to visit. Right. You might not remember exactly why, but that's part of it. So I hard agree with you that technology and all these things should enable the employees that are in store to make that experience even better. Right. Because that's just one of those pieces that actually technology can't fix. It's that human touch and that human experience.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I think when we all go shopping, we want
except for you. You want to be around away from the human, unless you need help.
But I admit, if I'm getting a good experience, if it's a cool place to be in while I'm shopping, I'm more inclined to be like, all right, I kind of enjoy being here. If I'm not getting hassled, I can do most of it on my own, and I get fun experiences out of it too. And again, at the end of the day, I think it's what most people want is they want something that's unique. Something that feels different than any other store they might go to, or something that definitely feels different than shopping online. Like, hey, sure, I can spend 2 hours looking for the stuff I need online and order a bunch of stuff, wait for a box to show up and hopefully it's all good. But how cool is it when I can just go to a store and get my hands on with this stuff that I want, or, or I don't know, or even just be given a free cup of coffee or a bottled water.
Well, I think the phrase here, pulling it out of that Forrester report, valuing their time, right?
Yeah.
People appreciate walking in the store, and you can tell right away if they value me and my time or if they don't. Right. If stuff's strewn all over the place and I'm going to have to pick through it, do they really value my time? Yeah. As opposed to a nice looking place where associates are have technology enabled. Okay, you value my time because I don't have a lot of time. Yeah. I don't have a lot of time to do shopping. So, what are you doing to help me out? Right. Kind of a thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, we didn't directly answer the question initially, but I think there are a lot of other things, but it does really start with that and figuring out what can we also take off the store associate's plate, by using technology to automate so that your store associate can spend more time with your customer, and doing things of that nature as well. But if we go back to the original question of, how is technology, helping out with that in-store experience? It's a lot. I think it's very different depending on the format of the store and the category of retail we're talking about. But we are seeing a lot of retailers repurposing space. We talked a little bit about, pick up from store and inventory and how we're using stores in different ways that way. But it's about creating, you talked about giving someone as simple as a bottle of water, right? Having a little lounge area. If you're talking about a more luxury boutique store where you have to wait for that interaction with the store associate, maybe you do have an area set up where you have some bottles of water, some coffee, things of that nature. In different formats, maybe you have some interactive digital signage experiences. Maybe even we're starting to see customers do more virtual reality type engagements and different ways of engaging with their phone and social media. Social shopping is definitely, picking up a lot as well. And how do you integrate that with the in-store experience? And so I think there's a lot of different things that are happening on the technology, and it does vary though by format.
Yeah. Like I think of, some reason an example that always comes to mind to me is IKEA. That's one of those places that people go to because they just enjoy the experience.
It's a destination.
Right.
Yeah.
There's plenty of times, there's a couple of times I've been there and plenty of people I know that go because they just want to walk through, check stuff out, get some of the meatballs, do whatever, just do some of the cool stuff you do at IKEA. Right. They don't plan on buying anything. They may not buy a single thing at all. Or or maybe they're just going there for something simple or whatever, but it's part of the experience. The walk through, the journey through the store is just as entertaining as whatever it is you might need to actually buy there. Yeah. Now, granted, and this kind of dovetails into our next question here, that's not what every store can do. Like most stores, again, I think about a lot of the other VARs that we work with. Other than CDW, there's a lot of them that we work with that they're mostly focused on SMB retailers. Some of the small, maybe local chains, maybe a small regional, retailer of some sort that, hey, they're not looking to be the IKEAs of the world. They're not looking to be the store that's on Fifth Avenue, and having this dynamic experience when you walk in, Tiffany's or something like that. They're not looking for that, but they're also still looking for a way like, hey, how can I get people to want to come to my store and buy something? I'm sure I'm offering stuff online. Maybe I've got the BOPUS option. Maybe I've got, some options to come in store and pick up or, place an order here. But I really still want people to come here, because when they come here, I've got great people. We've got great products. We know we can keep them in the store. How do we get them here? So let's talk a little bit about that. So, some of the smaller retailers that maybe are thinking like, I don't have the budget to go all out here. I can't install like amazing, beautiful signage. I can't build this wonderful experience all throughout my store. I don't have the space even for it necessarily. How do we talk to them and help them figure out like, hey, here are some small things that you can still do in your store to create an experience with customers that doesn't have to look like, what the big dogs are doing, but can still win you the business over going somewhere else or even shopping online?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a few simple things that we can do for smaller retailers. And some of it goes back to what we already spoke, pretty in depth about, which is around that store associate experience. And I think it starts with understanding what you want your customer experience to be, and then looking at your store associate experience, and does that enable them to achieve that customer experience? And when we think about that, I think mobile POS, we also spoke briefly about. I think that can play a huge part of it in a small store. How great is it for that store associate to walk with the customer throughout their entire journey, never have to leave their side, be able to pull up information, be able to get pricing, availability, be able to place the order, transact, and the customer can just leave right there. They don't have to go to a counter to look something up. They don't have to go in the back, storage room to see if the inventory's there. They can actually, if they don't have it in stock, they can ship it right to home, all without leaving the customer side and really consulting with them every step of the way. So I think mobile point of sale is an easy way. It's not super expensive. In a small store, you might only need, 1, 2, maybe 3 devices. If you're talking about a small format store, it depends on, again, the scale of what we're talking about. But for those smaller retailers, you could be talking 1 or 2 mobile devices and you're off and running. I think the other piece of it too is to think about is the network and the Wi-Fi in the store. What does that look like? Because if you don't have a good network, you're not going to be able to support the mobile point of sale. But what you're also going to have challenges with is, can your customer actually get on Wi-Fi and can they look up information? Because if we go back to what we spoke about at the start of this conversation around customers' expectations and they get them getting used to being online and having that unified experience across channels. If there's dead spots in your store and they can't connect online, that's going to frustrate people. I've walked out of stores because I'm trying to look something up and I can't, and I have to go to the front of the store to look it up, and I might as well just keep walking and go right out the door. So can I go online? Can I look up product information? Can I check out the price to make sure I'm getting a decent deal, which may seem counterintuitive, but if I'm pricing right, it's not really that big of an issue. And also, I may want to actually FaceTime someone and say, hey, what do you think of this? I may want to put it online. I may want to stream it. And if I can't do all those things, it's going to make me leave the store faster than if I could. So how is that network bandwidth, look like? And it's an easy fix in most cases.
I'll throw on the table like kiosks, right? Even though we're enabling the associate, some people in this room like to still have their own journey. So enabling kiosks today have gotten down to the point where really it's not cost prohibitive like it used to be. No. I mean, touch screens and things of that nature, just by enabling, even if you have your website on store and enabling kind of that endless aisle experience, right? Where okay, we might have we're going to enable that through a kiosk experience or price checking or whatever it may be, of course, on the checkout through a kiosk or some kind of self-serve there. Those are, I really think that's why we're seeing a huge, uptick, if you will, in those types of technology, right. The self-serve around a kiosk and things of that nature. Those are technologies that if SMB isn't looking at that, I mean, that is definitely, to me, it's one of those technologies it's not a cost thing as much as it used to be anymore. You can really enable it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I agree. And I think something important here too. Go ahead, Andy.
Sorry about that. No, I was going to say too, I think really, when we talk about affordable solutions, I mean, think about the revolution that the QR code has had.
Oh, right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And looking at ways to integrate QR codes into different parts of your store and even the checkout experience. Dean, you're talking about, kiosks. How about you let the customer build a cart in the kiosk and then have a QR code so they can finish a transaction on their phone?
Yep. There you go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about that unified experience and being able to kind of go across platforms and start and stop your journey. I could load that up and be off and running. I don't have to, you wouldn't even need to incorporate, the point of sale functionality in that kiosk. You could just have some digital signage with a QR code at the end that they scan and they finish a transaction online.
I was actually going to say something exactly the same about the QR code thing. Like, there's a simple thing that you can use it. Like you mentioned, you can maybe have them just post it around the store of like, hey, not sure which, size or color to get or whatever, scan this for some more options or whatever. Just little things like that. And if you're a VAR sitting there thinking like, what's that got to do with me? Well, hey, there's media right there. They're going to need a printer to print out those QR codes. They're going to need some media for that or some recurring revenue. There's probably going to be some back end inventory management software or some kind of software that you can partner up with somebody on the back end to deliver whatever message comes along with that code. There's lots of little opportunities there. And that stuff is going to be a very light, simple lift that is easy to explain to somebody like, hey, here's how this is going to benefit your store. And we're not asking you to do much of anything. You don't have to tear out stuff and install new things necessarily. We're not asking you for a monstrous lift. It might literally just be like, hey, you got all this shelf space here. There's a couple places you could stick some QR codes or just a little message, maybe a tiny little digital signage piece somewhere. It's stuff like that.
They're doing it.
Yeah.
I was up in Michigan and at a very small grocer, and they have wine selections that are called Laura's Picks. Right. And so it's like a local Molière or whatever you would call that. Right. And what they had was a little QR code that you could watch a little video of her and why she thinks this particular wine is so good.
And that
so it's just like a little vignette.
It's so
and
easy
I'm telling
to
you,
do.
there were people like, just crowded around. Everybody's like scanning in and then moving on. But I think you're hitting the nail on the head there, Andy. Sometimes it can be very simple stuff like that, where, again, if it's a journey, I don't mind going to a store and having a little bit of an educational experience around what it is I'm thinking about buying, right? I might have already done my research before I walked in the door, but I found myself QR coding Laura's Picks, and I'm like, well, what does she have to say about this?
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway.
Well, and I was going to add here also that, don't assume that small, mid-sized retailers aren't going to be interested in this stuff or don't see the value or immediately turned off on this stuff that you could only be chasing after the big boxes here.
Agreed.
I hosted a webinar yesterday with one of Lenovo's partners that, focuses on screens and displays, everything from POS to just in-store displays. They have lots of cool, unique, interesting little displays. I mean, nothing mind-blowing here. I mean, they were good, really cool, well-done stuff, but like just something as simple as like, hey, let's take a square screen and turn it sideways so it's kind of like a diamond shape because that catches someone's eye. And I asked the question towards the end of, hey, is this something where do you encounter this where people think that, smaller retailers are interested, or do you encounter smaller retailers that think this isn't for me, this is something for big stores? And they said, actually, it's quite the opposite. Usually the smaller retailers are the ones that are more interested in this stuff because they understand.
They got to differentiate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They understand that they need to differentiate, that they need to have a unique, different experience. They need to stand out from the big box store down the street. And sometimes just some cool, interesting signage that's got neat little things on it that catches people's eye when they walk in can make a big difference. Yeah. So I think that's important to remember is like, look, maybe you're thinking like the big box is the only place that are going to be interested in this kind of stuff.
Or that could invest in it kind of a thing.
Exactly. But the small retailers, they understand better than you might think. It's a matter of you having those conversations with them and breaching that subject to find out if there actually is a play there.
Yeah, right.
I think the other point there too is that when you think about it, sometimes it's actually more affordable for the smaller retailer to do it, because when you think of a Walmart, if they want to implement a new technology, how many stores do they have to replicate that across? Right? And when you have a smaller retailer, they might only need one or two of those digital signage solutions that you're talking about, and they might only have it on 1 to 10 stores. So the investment to be able to get to that ROI on that investment is so much faster for them. So especially if you could find a technology that can be leveraged across multiple use cases.
And how many layers of people do you have to go through to implement a solution in a big box store? All the various people you got to talk to, all the sign-offs and approvals, all the bureaucracy you have to go through there. Yeah, you go to a little mom and pop store, maybe they own like 5 locations around a county or something. Like you've probably got like maybe 2 people you have to talk to that are going to make that decision. You can wrap up that sale in maybe just a few weeks potentially. So
yeah, true.
Big difference between having to buy 10 displays and having to buy 100,000 displays.
Yeah, exactly.
Implement the same solution.
For sure.
All right. Well, hey, good stuff here. Before we wrap up with our value to the VAR and give another takeaway for our VAR audience here of maybe how you can approach this subject right now, I want to, as always, thank the sponsors of our show. We appreciate all of the vendors that sponsor us and that support us, the podcast, our TEConnect program. We appreciate what you guys do. And hey, if you like this show, it's kind of important to tell us. It's one of those things that I'm sure you listen to a lot of podcasts, you watch a lot of videos. How often do you take just that few extra seconds to leave a review?
Oh, yes, right. There you go.
To hit this 5 stars, to hit like, subscribe
Pretty
to something
easy to
that you
do.
like. It's simple. It's easy. You could do it right now. If you're watching on YouTube, there's a little button right down there below the video. Just like.
Yep.
That's
there
it.
you go. Yep.
You smash that subscribe button. If you're not
Smash.
subscribed to the YouTube channel, the BlueStar YouTube channel, you can subscribe. If you're listening on the podcast of your choice, especially like Apple Podcasts, I think Spotify is doing it now too. You can leave a quick little review there. It's something simple. Just go into the show and hit 5 stars. Leave us type us a quick little review. And you can pause it while you're doing that. So you're not missing anything. And just leave us a little review. Tell us what you
right
think.
now. Yeah,
I'd love to get some of these and read them on the show. We get ratings. There's a lot of people that rate the show.
Yeah,
but I don't get a lot of
Not a
reviews. Like I think
reviews,
your daughter left a review once.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, right?
That one didn't really count. So leave us a review. We want to hear from you, and more importantly, we also want to know, what do you want us to talk about on the show? If you like this conversation we had with Andy, if you think, hey, Andy seems like he knows a lot about retail, I'd love to get him back to talk about this other subject. Let us know. We just need to know that. There's always a link in our show notes where you can leave us a review, or not a review, but leave a topic for us. If you submit that to us just for sending it, even if we don't use it, even if it's something we've already covered and I can say, hey, we already did this, check out this episode, still, I'll send you a TEConnect podcast t-shirt.
There you go.
That's it.
Just like that.
Just for giving us an idea.
Nice
It's the
summertime tee.
Simplest way to get a t-shirt you're ever going to find in your life. Other
Absolutely.
than maybe, I don't know, going to a baseball game and have one shot out of you out of a cannon or something. I mean, and even that's not simple. You got to stand up.
Yeah,
you got to catch it.
You got to work for it.
Hope it doesn't hit you in the face. You got maybe shove
This
some
is
kid
even
aside
easier.
so they can't
That's
get
right.
it. Yeah.
That's right.
So simple way to do that. And of course, as always, if you want to keep in touch with us and keep connected with us, you can always find us on Twitter, at least until that platform dies. Maybe we have to start looking at some of the other ones at this point. But we're there for now at TEConnect Pod. You can also email us TEConnect@BlueStarInc.com. All right, let's wrap things up here, first of all, with our value to the VAR. As I mentioned, this is our way of kind of giving a little bit of a takeaway to our VARs of something maybe you can do actionable right now. So Andy, I'll let you kick us off here. Maybe we'll get a little broader than just what we've been talking about on the customer journey experience, if you've got some other ideas there. But is there any kind of new retail tech innovations, trends, stuff that you really think that VARs should be learning more about right now that's likely to become part of their tech stack either sooner or somewhere in the future? Just the stuff that you think, hey, if I were a retail VAR right now, I mean, you are obviously, in your world, what should you be paying attention to right now that's probably going to be important down the road?
Yeah, honestly, there's so many directions I can go with this one. We could probably spend another 45 minutes just on this, but I would say it's almost not fair because it's such a layup, and I almost feel bad kind of saying it, but AI obviously is, at the top of every retailer's mind. When we were at the NRF Big Show back in January, it was kind of being talked about, but people were trying to figure it out. I feel like it's what cloud was maybe 15 years ago, where it's a buzzword that everyone's talking about. Not everyone's quite sure what it means or what to do with it. But IDC releases their Futurescapes report every year at the beginning of the year. And I think at the beginning of the year, they said that by 2025, 20% of the top 100 global retailers will drive holistic business results using distributed AI systems. I'd be willing to bet that if they republish that, or when they do republish it next year, that number will be even higher. Because over the last few months, AI has just been on fire with ChatGPT. It just has everyone talking about it, thinking about it. But there's so many different ways that AI can help retailers take their data and not just have data sets, but actually create actionable insights off of them that they can execute on. And so I think AI is clearly the by far the biggest one that everyone's kind of trying to figure out right now.
I agree with that. I'm going to throw one more on the table, which is loss prevention. I came across an article on CDW. They've got a phenomenal amount of information around retail But they really had a good article wrapped around, what resellers can do around, what retailers can do, but resellers can pick up on this too, around loss prevention, because that's a pretty big thing right now, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think it's like 1.2% of all sales across all retail is loss, is just
That adds up, yeah.
literally walking out the door. Right. So when you look at it in the article, it cited 39% of retailers are implementing or planning to implement RFID. We already talked about it, systems to help thwart that, because you can have alarm systems and things of that nature. 30% of retailers are implementing or planning to implement a point of sale video analytics. So that kind of gets into a little bit of the AI, but again, there's a need for, really scrutinizing the use of technology to enable, in this case, loss prevention, right? And I think a lot of retailers are looking at that right now. What technology can we implement to help with the massive amount of loss prevention that's happening?
Yeah, I was going to say the AI thing too, and this is I think an opportunity for us to give a quick little sneak preview of the fact that we've got a few episodes about AI that are coming down the pipeline here. Wasn't intentional, but we've lined up some guests that all are going to have a little bit of
we got to start figuring this out
on AI stuff here soon. So
it's the Wild West right now.
Exactly. So keep in tune with that. But we're going to have more episodes where we're talking a lot more about AI. We have one that's going to be all about AI in retail in particular. As I mentioned, Andy's going to be actually back on the show with us again. I didn't mention this yet, but he's going to be back with us in about a month or so. We have another live episode we're going to be recording with him and a couple other folks from Zebra and Retail Management Hero, talking all about what's going on in POS and payments. And I can almost assure you that AI is going to be coming up in that conversation again too. I can't imagine no one's going to be bringing that up. So stay tuned, because there's a lot more for us to say about AI in the retail world, among other spaces. And I think we're going to have some really more interesting conversations about this, because it's fascinating to me too. I think we've gone beyond the, all right, this whole Chat GPT mid-journey stuff is cool and interesting, but what does it actually mean? Okay, now we understand what it means, and now there's even so much more we can do with this in so many other industries that we have to start wrapping our heads around. And to Andy's point, the stuff that once upon a time that we used to say, like, what does that actually mean? That's become part of our everyday lives. I think will be the same thing with AI, and not too much longer either.
Would agree. Yep.
Good stuff to keep an eye on and pay attention to. Do you have any other ones, Andy, that popped off the top of your head?
Yeah, well, I 100% agree with the loss prevention. I mean, we're doing a lot of work there. We have an entire physical security practice where we're looking at new ways of using cameras with AI and also some hosted and managed services to help, combat that. But it's one of the biggest challenges retailers have. And I've actually heard higher numbers than you, Dean. I think I've heard like 1.4.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? It's just crazy.
Not sound like a big difference, 1.2 to 1.4, but
that's billions of dollars, probably, or hundreds of millions of dollars right there. Yeah.
For sure. So huge problem that everyone's looking at. And loss prevention teams have the same staff challenges that, the rest of the store does. So they don't have the bandwidth to really, go after it well enough. And then there's also safety issues that I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But I think the other thing that's, really interesting to talk about is Web3. And I know there's a lot of mixed opinions on Web3 and what that means, and whether that's related to payments, whether that's related to NFTs, which are a little controversial at times too, but there are some loyalty perks in ways that they can be leveraged for that. But then also just the underlying technology. There's the metaverse too, but the underlying technology around Web3 of the blockchain and how that's going to be leveraged in the future, I think is really interesting, because it's being used in a lot of ways. I don't know if you saw anything about Lowe's Project Unlock, but some fascinating stuff where what they're doing is they've actually started, because of all the organized retail crime that they're combating, so tying back to your loss prevention, they've actually started a program where they're integrating RFID chips inside their power tools. And the power tool will not work unless during the transaction, they unlock it. So it's almost, when you used to go, when you go to the store and you get a clothing tag removed, you don't have to physically remove the tag. It's activated when that purchase takes place. And if someone steals that device, the power tool is just not turn on. And so what's powering that is RFID, of course, but also the underlying that is the blockchain technology, because it's all being tracked and ultimately looking towards how can that be leveraged on an open source system. So that can actually be integrated with law enforcement. It could be tracked for returns. It could be tracked on the second market. And where blockchain is going and the ability for inventory validation, has huge potential.
Brilliant.
That's awesome.
Yes, that's pretty cool.
No more buying something that fell off a truck. Yeah, we know exactly what truck that fell off of.
Yeah, we
And
know
you're
where
going
it
to
was.
jail.
We know it wasn't paid for, and when they try to return it in the store, they're like, "I'm sorry, this was never purchased."
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Brilliant.
Yep.
Yeah,
Because I
good
remember
stuff.
that in my retail days, and I worked in a bookstore. Like there was people would try to return stuff. That sometimes it was very clear, like you didn't buy this from us.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
I know it's something we have, but it's not something you
didn't
bought
buy
from
it
us.
here. Yeah. All
so-
right.
Yeah, so Dean, I'll give you a little homework. Google Project Unlock with Lowe's, and you'll see they put out some collateral about it. They had a speaking session at NRF Protect back in June, and it was phenomenal work they're doing there.
Nice.
And,
Awesome. Yeah, I'll put a link to that in our show notes.
yeah.
All right. Well, hey, let's wrap up as always with our favorite segment, What's TEConnecting with You? This is where we get to talk about something in the world of science, tech, innovation, business, discoveries, just stuff that's
Or
got our
otherwise.
attention,
Yes.
caught our
Yeah,
eyes.
yeah.
If it's you and me, it's just stuff we just feel like talking about because we have to do one of these every single episode. But Andy, I'll let you start here. What's TEConnecting with you right now?
Oh, geez, I think I just gave my answer for you already.
Right?
Everything that's happening in that space of Web3 is really interesting. And again, I know people have mixed feelings about it because there's, some people don't think that cryptocurrencies are legitimate. Some people think that NFTs are a joke. But when you start to peel back the layers and thinking of it outside of, what a lot of the narratives are that are out there and how can it be used in a business sense? So you see Starbucks, playing with NFT loyalty programs. They have their Odyssey program, they're calling it, is their pilot around using an NFT loyalty program. There's other ways that it can be leveraged to build brand engagement. I'm not talking about just kind of sending out some cartoon gifs, as as an NFT just for the sake of doing it. But there's ways that NFTs at the end of the day are a way of authenticating.
Tokenizing, yeah, right. Yep.
And so there's a lot of ways that I think retailers are starting to test that out. And when you start to peel back the layers of Web3 in general and where it's going and how that's going to impact the retail industry, it's got some really profound potential. But I think we need to get past some of the gimmicky stuff that's going on right now.
Yeah, that was my thought on it too.
Right.
It's one of those
Yep.
things where I'm a big skeptic about it myself too, but I also recognize like maybe once we've got all the grifters pushed aside that are trying to figure out how to just make millions off
Yes,
of this,
yes.
and we realize where the underlying value might be, we can get to some useful applications.
Yeah,
from
the
it,
impact
so.
it's going to have on
true.
supply chain is really amazing.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yep.
definitely.
I would agree with that. Yep.
Good stuff. All right,
Keep it
Dean,
in
what
the-
about you? What's TEConnecting with you?
Well, I got, I don't know. Am I eating crow? I don't know. So here's the headline. Netflix hauls in nearly 6 million new subscribers and $8.2 billion in revenue in Q2 as the streamer cracks down on the password sharing. So, right? I mean, we all use Netflix, I guess,
I'd
right,
say
in the room.
If any of them, that's the most likely one. That's
So the day that dropped, the whole can't
Right,
share your password anymore, my daughter's on the phone with me. Dad, Netflix is no longer. I'm like, yeah. I mean, we saw this coming, right?
Right,
They announced it. Well, fix it. Was the answer. So, whereas I thought, there were some out there would think, well, this is going to be, damaging for
Right,
Netflix.
right.
It's going to be terrible for business. Nope, not the case. 6 million new subscribers. I, by the way, am one of those like a half subscriber, so that you could do the buddy system, I guess, right? Where it's not full price, but at half price, and then that unlocked my daughter into Netflix. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, Netflix is one of the few streamers that's still doing fairly well. All the others are struggling.
Yeah.
And then now on top of it, you got the whole writers and actors strikes.
Yeah, but what's your take here? Because as a consumer, there's so much content out there.
There is.
It would take me so long to catch up to what's been produced to
There
date.
is, and I think that's the
Nobody's-
problem. I think
nobody's
that's-
really gonna care.
I think we're getting close to some kind of loggerheads here with all of this because yes, to your point, before these strikes happened, before Netflix started cracking down on this stuff, there's just too many different streamers out there. There's so much content. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I love the fact that I've got I can finish a show and go right on to something else that I've been itching to watch. And I don't see any end to that for a very long time, but. I think you're getting to the point where you're getting so oversaturated, people don't know where to go, and these streamers are reaching the point where and Disney was one of the ones that, as an example, is when Bob Iger took back over the company again, he looked immediately at Disney Plus and said, all right, your whole goal this time has just been to get as many people as possible signed up without bothering to get any revenue out of this and bothering to figure out what you're actually getting off the back end of this. You just cared about subscribers. And now I think that model's shifting. Plus, again, you've got all the writers and actors and whoever that are saying like, hey, for those of us that aren't the superstars and the megastars that get paid millions just to show up and make a movie or a TV show, we're all struggling because we're getting literal pennies. There's
on
people that are
royalties.
actually showing off like, I got a penny royalty for this show that was a mega super hit, but now is streaming, and therefore I get only pennies every 6 months out of it at this point. That's the kind of stuff I think is good at this whole thing is gonna have to evolve and change in some way.
Something's gonna have to change somewhere.
And I think Netflix will probably weather that storm because
they got the subscribers.
Yeah, they're still one of the premier ones. They will probably absorb some of the smaller ones into them at some point. Is what's going to happen. But I think you're going to start seeing
consolidation.
Some kind of consolidation. And it's going to be a.
What's that, Andy?
You know what's coming next, Dean, so watch out. You're not going to be able to share your Amazon Prime membership.
Dude, I know.
I don't know. As much as you spend on that one, though, that's one I feel like, it's one thing. It's one thing to share a password for something you're paying like $6 a month for. But Prime's like what, $120 a year now, something like that. I think.
Plus all the stuff you're buying and all the money that they're making. Come on.
Yeah. But that is a good point because they do fold a lot of services under that, and I could see them starting to piecemeal that a little bit too. We'll see what happens there.
Anyway,
all right.
That's my tech beef actually. What's TEConnecting with you?
All right. Here's a resolving a tech beef.
Oh.
So the Apple had their big WWDC conference about a month and a half or so ago, and normally everyone's excited. They just find out like, all right, what's going to be in the new iOS? What new tech you can put? Of course, they put out the whole new, the new
headphones,
VR.
The
VR thing. What's it called? Vision Pro or something like that, or whatever they're putting out there.
I'm surprised if Andy doesn't have one of those already. You got the Vision Pro or whatever?
Have you seen the videos? That's a little creepy because the whole thing where it like lets people see your eyes, like when you're talking to them,
like ski goggles.
It's like, I refuse to take this off, but I'll talk to you and you can see my eyes through it. But I'm not here to talk about that because that's a whole different thing. Maybe we spend a Tech Bites episode diving.
Maybe we should. We should. Yeah.
I wanted to talk about a new feature that's coming to iOS 17, which is going to solve a big ducking problem.
Okay, what might that be?
Which is the autocorrect of a certain F word that sometimes people like to use in their texts or messages. It always gets autocorrected to the word duck.
Does it really?
And apparently now Apple's going to fix that, where that is not automatically getting autocorrected anymore.
They're just going to let you curse like a sailor.
The autocorrect will learn that you prefer to use the other word and will no longer correct it for you and leave it as your particular word of choice.
Who knew? Are you writing all this content that has the word duck in it?
I'm not, but just, every now and then, like...
Andy, has this been a chronic problem for you? I mean, you're an Apple guy, right?
No, I can't say that it is, but I wonder what happens if I try to put the word duck in.
I'm pretty sure you get... Well, that's going to be a good question after this happens. I'm pretty sure right now you're fine, but I'm curious after the fact if it's like, did you mean to say this instead? We'll see what happens there. I'm very curious about that. But it's one of those very tiny little things. I'm like, all right, I can get behind this because I can't tell you. Again, I'm not sitting there just like it's not like I'm ripping them off in every single text I'm sending or every email I'm sending or anything. But there's times when you want to. There's times when you want to use it.
Well, especially when you're angry.
You want the word, right? Exactly.
And then you really want to use it after it doesn't work for you.
Exactly.
I'm not duck.
It reminds me of either of you seen The Good Place? The sitcom The Good Place. No. So in The Good Place, they're in heaven is the theory behind it. It's these people that have died or in the afterlife. And whenever they try to curse, it just completely changes what comes out of their mouth to a different word. So like I think that word becomes fork every time that they say it. It's just fork, and like another one becomes shirt, instead.
Yeah.
I always found that to be clever
Yeah.
usage of that. This reminds me of that, and this that just gives me a chuckle when I think about
there
this.
You go.
Well, Dean, now that you have your own Netflix account, you could actually watch it. I think it's on there. So.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yes. Highly recommend it. A fantastic show. I do highly recommend that one too. So.
Good stuff.
All right. That is what's TEConnecting with us.
Yep.
Andy Szanger from CDW.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate having you on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate you having me and appreciate the partnership with BlueStar. Always amazing to work together. So
thank you, sir.
Awesome. Yep. Definitely. And again, Andy will be back in a few weeks for a cool live episode that we're going to do. We'll be sending out some info soon about how you can sign up and watch live and ask questions of Andy and the rest of our panelists that day.
Live.
So make sure you tune in for that. It is time, unfortunately, for us to unplug for the day. So until next time, send some ducking texts. Explore Web3, get past the grift a little bit, see what you can find.
And share your Netflix.
Share your Netflix if you can. And as always, folks, please stay connected. TEConnect Podcast is brought to you by Ewo. Modern point of sale goes beyond just having a touch display and cloud software, right?
Yes, of course.
You gotta have sleek, functional accessories.
Ooh, whoa, we're accessorizing.
Wait,
yes.
we just talked all about experience.
Well, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
You don't just put some clunky hardware that, give them an experience and like, here's the thing you check out.
Yeah, here's the brick.
Here's the brick you check out. No, it's got to look cool.
Yeah.
So Elo has that covered with their retail-hardened Z-Series POS stands. Now, each model of the Z stand offers cable concealment to keep counter spaces clean. No one wants to see that.
No, nobody wants to see the rat's nest.
Cables everywhere. Yeah, exactly. Rat's nest. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
A single cable connection to add a customer-facing display and compatibility with Elo's I-Series displays. The Z20 and 30 offer integrated I/O, and the Z30 can include an integrated customer display.
Nice.
Lots of different options. Love their modular.
We love options and modularity.
Options here, yeah. The Z stands are also available as a component of a prepackaged Elo POS Android point-of-sale solution for compact spaces, full service to self-service versatility, or maximum connectivity with interactive CFD. So to compare your options and find the right stand for your next POS install, check out the link in the show notes or contact the BlueStar Elo team. This episode is also brought to you by Toshiba. Create exceptional experiences today with the Toshiba TCX 810 POS system. We're covering all the stuff here today.
Yeah, we are.
We got retail fulfillment, we got experience,
yes.
we got cool, slick products, and now we got an actual POS system here too. So
and a good one from Toshiba.
That's
right.
right.
There you go.
The TCX 810 POS system is Toshiba's most powerful and robust all-in-one point-of-sale system, delivering the performance, durability, adaptability, and serviceability that your retail customers need to thrive today and in the future.
There you
Not
go.
just about today.
No. It's future-proof.
One for years to come. Yeah.
Because this stuff's going to be around for a while. This is good stuff.
Exactly. The TCX 810 has an industry-leading number of I/O ports for maximum connectivity. Very important. You got all those cool accessories and stuff that you need to attach.
Peripherals that come in. Yep.
Multiple FHD screen sizes offering richer colors and deeper contrast. 11th gen Intel processor and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth wireless connectivity.
Boom.
Now, an IP53 rating makes this the rugged system that's tough enough to endure 7 years.
See, I'm telling you.
Spills, drops, and continuous chemical cleaning.
It's like a tank.
And again,
These things are
if you've ever been in
made to
retail,
work. Yeah.
you know how much your POS takes a beating. And you need it to be able to hold
it's
up.
not this soft little place where,
it's not. No. You got all these seasonal employees that just are knocking stuff
being
around,
spilled
dumping
on.
stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So this TCX 810 can handle that. Check out the link in the show notes or contact your BlueStar account manager to learn more. TEConnect Podcast is also brought to you by Zebra. Modern retail extends beyond the shop and the cash wrap. Again, we just talked all about this today.
Absolutely.
Customer journey. It's not just about, what's happening in the store. It's what's happening online. It's what's happening back of store. It's what's happening in fulfillment.
Enabling your associates. All that kind of good stuff. Yeah.
So today's retailers are turning their back of house and supply chain operations into fulfillment centers for online orders, for BOPUS, curbside, and more. This path to a modern, successful warehouse operation begins with the right solutions from the right technology partner. From gaining basic controlled operations to achieving predictability and adaptability, Zebra can guide your customer's modernization journey. Look, it's not just the customer that's going into the store journey, it's the journey of the folks that work for the store. 100%,
yes.
Employee experience, too.
Yes.
In their new ebook, 3 Trends Shaping Retail Fulfillment, they look at the trends, solutions, and opportunities to exceed customer expectations, improve operational visibility, and empower the employees. It's packed with case studies, videos, and tips to help guide your retail warehousing partners. Check out the link in the show notes to request the ebook, and after you read it, go back and check out episode number 151 of the podcast to learn more from Zebra's John Worthland and Tim Kane.